I will call this meeting Finance Committee at 6:32 p.m. We have to read the disclosure pursuant to Chapter 20. That's never been on our agenda. Anyway. Approval. That's.
I left my.
What did you?
Finance in the car.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, this I just printed out. Okay, so approval of minutes of October 10th, 2023. They're attached. Has anybody looked at them?
Yep.
I did.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes of October 10th. Any discussion on the minutes? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-0. Minutes have been approved. Public comment. See anyone here from the public that wishes to comment? We'll move on to legislation referred. We have an order FY 24-012 general fund free cash allocations. This was at the town council meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, and referred to us, which will be on the agenda tonight for final approval, I believe. And attached is the, it's an annual thing. The town, I'll refer to the town manager who just wants to explain.
Sure. This is sort of the annual allocation of our free cash. We've got, Lori can sort of go into the details on where the free cash came from, not from heaven. And we will.
From the drawer and the counting in the back.
Well, some of it. So anyway, we annually just divide it into 5 or 6 different buckets pursuant to the free cash policy, basically. So Lori did give you just sort of some breakdown of what free cash is, a little educational material, but it also shows what we're proposing a few pages in. And do you want to go?
Yeah. So basically, thank you. Basically, the free cash. If you turn to page 6, yeah. So it just kind of breaks out the property tax for fiscal 23. It was a 99.94% collection. There was a little negative number, and I think it was because we had a rather large overvaluation from one of the rather large businesses up off of Pleasant Street. When the valuation was done originally, beginning of January, it was calculated and written up like it was an open for business, big warehouse. So I don't even know what's back there, but I think Shelley can speak to it. But anyway, we did have a rather large payment that went through, and we got it into the books for 23. Usually it comes out of the overlay and works itself around, but we're pretty trying to be efficient to get everything in the fiscal year that pertains to the fiscal year. So, but we still had a great collection rate. So that is the top. Local receipts, you can see motor vehicle excise was increase of we had an increase of 668,000. Excise, meals and room were a little bit over, and licenses and permits in that local receipt section was rather high. There were a couple of major, the warehouse I believe on Bedford Street, some of the permitting from there came through. So as well as the state reimbursements were in the plus 24,000. Those cherry sheets they come from the governor's office every year. And then the non-revenue sharing of the local receipts, meaning some of the fees and departmental revenue that we collect that supports the departments, like fire station, alarm fees, planning board fees, and other departmental fees. So that's what those buckets represented. The bottom 2, investment income and miscellaneous non-recurring revenue. That was rather substantial. So that was like, $600,000 almost. The investment income, we were very fortunate that the collected treasurer took advantage of moving our money into better interest bearing accounts this year. So we really did well with that. typically we don't really budget more than 100,000, so this is the largest I've seen in many years. And then the miscellaneous non-recurring revenue is things that come into the general fund that by law can't go anywhere else but the general fund. We have on one of the slides you'll see after that the FEMA money from the Winter Keenan storm that we spent a few years ago, 165,000. That was finally received into our treasury, as well as a couple of prior year bills and auction proceeds. So that's what that represents. And finally, you'll see 413,000 in the bottom. We were able to, Colin was able to finish off a project we were working with for about 5 years with the planning board, with the ZBA, with the collector treasurer of some stale funds that have been sitting there. We did our due diligence, made sure we gave everyone, was it a developer or whoever from the planning board, any fees that were due to be returned to anyone. We did that, but there were some funding left over that we closed out. And that was a culmination of 4 to 5 years working with Les Doyle before she left. So we finally closed that out, which was a nice amount of 413,000. So we had some turnbacks from the general fund, meaning departments turned over some excess expenditure receipts or unused appropriations, and most of that was due to unfilled positions, some in the highway, some in engineering and CED, as well as I think in the senior center. So I don't know if anyone knows this, but it's really hard to find good candidates. Nobody wants to work anymore, so we did have some funding left over there, as well as in the health insurance that would have went along with filling positions. So it's kind of a summary of where the 4 million came up to, and we expected between 2 to 2.5 million. So these one-time things were really something that gave us the excess of 4 million. So that is where that came from. And you can see by the
Quick question before we move on. Up the top under real estate, the 252 and 656, is that less monies collected in real estate taxes?
Yep. So it was based on that. We did an abatement rate in June that was rather large for, I think it was Claremont, that was overvaluated. So that kind of hit that a little bit. Usually it doesn't even come in until the next fiscal year because we're the abatements, and we have an overlay account that covers that. That really, the overlay account really doesn't show into our revenue and reporting, but it is there. So. So then we have another slide of how we're allocating this based on, hitting our stabilization fund, our capital trust fund, our OPEB, our liabilities. And you will see that we did create the new opioid settle, the opioid settle stabilization fund. I can't speak tonight. So we did, in fact, set that up, or you guys voted for it. So the money that did come into miscellaneous revenue closed out. So whatever we collected in 23, we're going to put that into that fund. And I think we just got another payment of around 20,000. So I'm going to build that fund up until the town decides how they're going to spend that on what kind of programs.
I think it's $13 million total.
The opioid money?
No, of all the funds.
Oh,
Total.
yeah.
Quick question on slide 8. So percentage of free cash allocated by fund, the percentages. So that's the percentages that each fund would get of the total free cash?
Yes.
So the percentages add up to 117%.
They do.
So is this driven off of those percentages?
So the policy, says that we'll fund the stabilization fund, 10 to 11% of general fund, budget, and then, the sick buyback, which is the sick buyback
Employee
account.
liability.
The employee liability, we estimate what the next 2 years, potential next 2 years liability would be. So that's kind of funded with a specific dollar amount. The, obviously the opioid is sort of carved out, that's separate, unique this year. So a lot of those are fixed, so that basically the remainder goes into either the one-time stabilization account or the capital stabilization account. So those are the ones that have a little more flexibility.
No, which I understand, I just,
Yeah.
the percentages
Percentage
are off.
adding up to 118.
So I just want to
But
make,
it's not, so the policy isn't based on the
Yeah.
percentage of each,
No, the
what
total
percent of
policy.
each fund.
but for capital trust, it's not, it's a percentage of what's left over after we allocate what we're
Yeah, so,
inclined to
so
do.
that actual
Basically.
percentage is going back to the amount. So it's really not calculated.
I just want to make sure these numbers are accurate, not driven off of the percentages, even though I understand at least two of them have a fixed amount. I just want to make sure that ties out.
So there's nothing in your policy that says, X percent goes here, X percent goes there. So I think those percentages were employed with those in, just to sort of help, help you
Percentage of
to know how much
but it's not-
relative to the total is going into each fund. It's great to have 117% of something,
Yeah, I don't know.
but the dollar figures are
Yeah.
what it's sort of.
Okay.
Well, it's nice to see, I mean, what I'd like to see, Mike, is that we use, if future projections are gonna be pretty consistent. I mean, I know at some point the economy is gonna stop, and I hope it doesn't, but we've been getting, $2.5 to $4 million the last several years. What I'd like to see is between the stabilization and capital trust is take some money out of it, do a road,
Well,
just do a road.
so that's actually one of the things that we sort of funneled more into capital
Yeah.
stabilization and shorted sort of the one-time capital fund specifically for that, because we know we have to address Flag Street.
Right.
So,
But I think the other thing too, Michael, what I'd like to see, and people are gonna have to understand, is we need to start fixing roads by priority, not by price.
mhm.
And if that means that we have to wait a year or two to do one road, if that's the top priority, then people are gonna have to understand that unless they want to do additional funding, which is totally up to them. I think what we've done in the past is we've gone out and we've fixed what we could afford.
Yeah,
That doesn't work because there are roads out there that are a top priority that are beyond that.
yeah, they get ignored.
And, people rightfully want the roads to be fixed, but they have to understand how that's going to work. That's why I'd like to see a plan where we've got our complete streets, we've got our priority. The first street, what's the top priority? I don't even know what the price is, but, to Dennis's point, it has to be done, but it's either gonna be done through free cash, it's either gonna be, or done through our revenue, or it's gonna have to be done
And I think
through
we
the
can
third
afford,
source.
I think we can
I
afford.
think we
to
can,
do
yeah, and that means other streets that people would love to see fixed are gonna have to wait.
So exactly to your point, what you're gonna see is a fairly robust, for us, fairly robust plan that outlines exactly what you're saying, like prioritizing. We have five streets are priorities right now. And we know what those are, and their main, all but one is essentially a main thoroughfare. So we'll prioritize, you'll see the cost of each component of those projects. And then you'll see, what we do with the chapter 90 funds that we get, prioritize those, which have the maintenance piece of it, not the capital, rebuild.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I am anticipating for sort of comprehensive
Right.
road plan.
Yeah, because I think with chapter 90 and other federal or state monies for roads, we could probably do 2 roads, but we could certainly take some of ours and say, okay, let's do a good street, let make everybody, people happy. I know it's not on the agenda, but it's, I think we're in a good position to be able to do that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend.
Second,
There's a motion to recommend order FY 24-012. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's 3-0 to recommend. So thank you. Oh, wait a minute, we got more agenda. Public comment, let's see who showed up during all that. Anybody else show up? No? Nobody's here for public comment. The time is now 6:48. I'll entertain a motion to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 3-0. The meeting is adjourned.